So everything you've heard about Core 4 recently has just been, I think, completely wrong. And it's no shade to people who have reported on this, YouTubers or people on Twitter have been talking about this, talking about Aizen's Bankai and Tokinada. And in my opinion, you've just completely missed the point. And here is why. And of course, if you want to hear more, hit that like, that subscribe, and just let's get into it, shall we? So the Bleach Blu-ray recently came out with, of course, adjustments to the anime, and to be honest with you, I don't think it's that significant to really touch upon other than special effects and one or two redraws of Uryu and Ichigo. Other than that, the main part of the meat and potatoes of this is the interview, to which I haven't really truly read because I want to read it, first hand from Japanese and translate it myself. But to entertain this whole conversation about Aizen and Tokinada, I will specifically talk about this very specific line, which people genuinely thought about. And of course, the original post about this was that there was going to be a new character that is going to do something, and of course bundled up with the fact that Kubo on his club outside, I think a few months ago, said something about audition tapes and how he's looking through them for the core. People then also assumed, of course, Ichika and of course or Kazui, which again I don't think is the case at all. And I'll entertain this by just reading this out. Of course, why I don't think it's Ichika and Kazui is because I've done my own investigative research upon this, and some people that I've spoke to don't even know who Ichika and Kazui is. So, and that's the main staff, so maybe I'm kind of pinpointing it towards that, and it's my own bias as well that I don't want Ichika and Kazui to be in it, because if Ichika and Kazui is in it, then probably we won't get Can't Feel Your Own World. Again, it all depends on the context of how they would be introduced, but I would rather them not be in there, because again, if they're not involved in this core, then the expectation that there is going to be Can't Feel Your Own World or more expanded stuff after Thousand Year Blood War arc is going to be more than likely to happen. But again, that's a topic for another day. So that's why my own biasness is going towards that. If he had just said audition tapes in general for new characters, then I would say, of course, BBS. But considering that Kubo said specifically this core, then it has to be a new character or a new voice within this. So you have to boil it down to, okay, let's take Ichika and Kazui outside of the spectrum of this conversation, and then I guess Tokinada would be, of course, on that forefront, right? Which would make sense because, of course, you have the prelogue of Can't Feel Your Own World, which kind of ties into Thousand Year Blood War. I don't think you can have Can't Feel Your Own World without the epilogue. Sorry, not prelogue, but kind of epilogue and prelogue of Can't Feel Your Own World and Thousand Year Blood War. You can't really... It'd be a bit weird to end Thousand Year Blood War the way it does if you don't include the prelogue, because it kind of continues off from the Thousand Year Blood War, and I feel like it's just kind of needed. But regardless of what, let's entertain Tokinada, right? Which again is completely plausible, but I don't think is the case. So let's have a look at this translation. This is from Ichigo Taicho 9. I rechecked Kubo's wording, as we know from the interview that Kubo did say a spoiler, and it was edited by Shueisha themselves, so that spoiler wasn't kind of out to the public, so to say. So they did change Kubo's word in here, and this was kind of said by Kubo himself in Club Outside. But it says, after rechecking Kubo's wording, and here's some quick context on what was actually said, and here's the original Japanese, and here's the literal translation. In Core 4, that character will... ... I think it will be the biggest surprise. No verb, just that character will. In Japanese, that long pause ... isn't random. It's a classic way to build suspense. The sentence trails off on purpose so your brain fills in the rest. It usually implies will appear, will awaken, will finally move, etc, etc. Something big is about to happen, which led me to interpret it as that character will finally appear. So this is this part here, which led me to interpret it as, is their own interpretation, right? So here's what my opinion is, and of course, like, people kind of speculated before this was corrected that Aizen's Bankai would be a thing, which I think is ridiculous. And here's the thing, I will apologize in advance if I'm completely wrong, which I don't think I will, but I have to ask you this serious question, right? Genuinely, as a Bleach community, would you really be happy with the concept of Aizen doing a Bankai and then getting diffed by Yuha? Like, genuinely, when you sit there as a Bleach fan and you think, yes, Aizen's Bankai, like, yes, it would be a monumental moment, and I think it needs to be a monumental moment for its own movie or for its own arc or even the Hell arc, right? It needs to be something huge and massive. And you're telling me as a Bleach fan, you can sit there comfortably and think, oh yeah, Aizen can use his Bankai and get absolutely roasted, toasted by Yuha. You'd really, because we all know how 1,000 Year Blood War ends. You really think that would be satisfactory to you? I don't think so. I think it would absolutely diminish Aizen's Bankai tenfold, and I think it'd be ridiculous, personally speaking. But that's just me. I'll leave that question off to you, right? So then you have to think, okay, well, what other character would also do something or appear, right? Again, if it's Tokinada, somewhat cool, right? We will have, Can't Fear Your Own World kind of tease, and again, that goes for my agenda that it will happen, but I think in this context of translation, I think it's an already pre-existing character, and the only thing that really backs this up, of course, with Tokinada is, of course, the auditions, or the audition tapes that Kubo said he was going to do. So you have to think, okay, well, one, a character is going to do something, and it's going to be a new character. Or a new voice, right? Because, again, Kubo has said for Core 4, he's looking at audition tapes. So the character doesn't exist, or the character doesn't have a voice, right? So, Ichigo's his Bankai. Like, sure, that would be something that people would want, but obviously I don't think it's going to be the case, because you don't need an audition tape for that. Or maybe it's completely two separate things. Maybe the audition tape and this are completely different. You have to remember, we've got about 2 volumes to fill into Core 4. There's going to be at least 50% of new content in Core 4, and a lot can happen within 50% of original storytelling, right? So maybe that these two are completely separate things, right? So you can have 2 things where a character does something which is really fucking cool, or you can have a new character which is kind of alluded to this. So I'm gonna play both sides of the story, right? So let's say we forget about the audition tape right quick, and we say a character will do something that will be a very big surprise. Well, let's have a look at the final battle, because I imagine a lot of the 50% of original content is probably going to be towards that final fight, right? It just kind of makes sense. The other 2 volumes can probably cover about 6 episodes, and the rest of them is going to be in between. So I would imagine, right, you have to look at the scope of what characters are going to do things in Core 4, right? And you kind of whittle it down to that big Yuha fight, which comprises of Ishin, Ryuken, Uryu, Ichigo, I guess Orihime. Obviously Ichigo with possibly his Bankai actually being fulfilled, and we get to see what it does, because that's a very big surprise that people would request. You also have maybe even Ganju, to some even, Ginjo. Ginjo. You have Ginjo. You also have Renji in that fight. You also have Aizen in that fight, and you also have, you can even throw Yoruichi into that mix to some degree, right? You got to think, okay, out of all of these characters, Rukia, because in chapter 666, Urahara goes and says something along the lines of like, it's all up to you now, Kuchiki and Kurosaki, right? So obviously, like, Rukia didn't do something that was meant to be in the original manga. So we know that Renji got his time to shine. Is Rukia going to do her thing too, right? Is she going to have her time to shine, even though her time to shine was pretty big, right? Like, is she going to be doing something? So we have the possibility of Rukia too. So you have to look at all these characters and think, well, what will be a big surprise? And to me, in my opinion, it's either going to be Ichigo's Bankai, or maybe something with Ishin. Will he drop his Bankai? Will Ryuken do his version of, his version of Vollständig? These things I don't think is going to be the case, and I'm more likely to go towards the essence of Ichigo's Bankai actually getting fulfilled, or we at least see it through a Yuha vision, which will be a big surprise, I would say, because people do want to know what his Bankai does do. And then we get onto the point of now the voice actor, right? What's the voice actor? Like, who's the new character that doesn't have a voice? Well, I think a lot of people are missing the point completely, right? This is Core 4. There's not many characters that don't have a voice. Ichika, Kazui, Tokinada, right? Is Aura going to be in Core 4? Probably not. But why is, and this is my prediction, why is everyone in the Bleach community forgetting about the Soul King. We know nothing about the Soul King, about the past, what he was like when he was alive, X, Y, and Z. Why can Adonais, the Soul King, have a voice? Because it would make sense. That is the most plausible thing to me besides Ichigo having his Bankai get released. Why would Adonais, the Soul King, actually have a flashback of what happened all that time ago? We would have a story that's been filled. We know throughout the other cores that we've been getting little bits of flashback here and there. We've had like these visions that Ichigo's been having. We've been having these visions that Yuha's been having. We've been having a tiny bit of visions of what Ichiba's been having. So it's like, we're really going to end off the core with Ichigo fighting Yuha and have nothing completely about the Soul King whatsoever, about how he got into that situation, what he was thinking, what his premonitions were, what his conversations with Ichibe was. Like, this is a very big plot point that never got displayed within the manga. And everyone's sitting there going, Aizen's Bankai. Oh, Tokinada. Why is everybody forgetting the Soul King? And I feel like this is something that would make more sense contextually, even with Ichigo Taicho's own interpretation here of like, something will appear, something will awaken, and something will finally move. These all pinpoint things towards the Soul King. And I know it's not as exciting as Aizen's Bankai, or maybe not even exciting as Ichigo's Bankai, right? But it's like, really? You want Aizen to do Bankai in Core 4 and then get absolutely mollywobbed by Yuha? Like, would you not want to prefer that to save a whole movie towards that? Like, the marketing alone on Aizen's Bankai? Like, Aizen saying Bankai in his voice act with a black screen for a PV for a movie would just be enough to sell on its own. Like, that would be the movie that everybody would want to see, and all it needs is just literally one line from a voice actor and a black screen. Like, imagine that. That's all it needs. That is the peakest, most best advertising ever. But you want to use it in Core 4 to go up against Yuha when we already know how it's going to end. It just seems a bit, lackluster, a bit insulting towards Aizen, and then insulting for marketing purposes too, right? And it's going to get overshadowed, like, you would overshadow that over Ichigo's Bankai. There's like, even if Core 4 did this for Aizen, it would heavily disappoint me. Again, context is key, and how it's done is, we'll see how it goes, but with that thought in my mind, this would be a massive disappointment. So I do think this is going to be Adonais, the Soul King. We're going to see what he can do. We're going to see him talk. We're going to see some more backstory. And this is pivotal, considering that the Soul King is literally the linchpin of this whole entire 1,000-year Blood War arc. Why would it not be? And nobody's talking about it. But, yeah, with that being said, I'm going to catch you guys later. You guys, of course, have this fine day with Hansen. As always, people, peace out.